Everyone, and again, Christ is risen. Thank you very much for coming this evening to celebrate the greatest night in the history of the world, when our Lord and God, Jesus Christ, resurrected from the dead, rose up and gave us hope. One of the hymns that we sang right before we began the Divine Liturgy. It's a beautiful hymn that says, "Today is the day of resurrection. Let us be radiant in the feast, and let us embrace one another." And then it says this, listen. "Let us call even those who hate us our brothers and sisters, and let us forgive one another in the light of the resurrection. And therefore let us cry out, Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and giving life to those in the tombs." This is a beautiful hymn because it summarizes the spirit of Pascha, of Easter. It summarizes. What is Pascha all about? It's about God in the form of Jesus Christ being crucified, being killed, being put in a tomb, Christ experiencing the greatest evil that the world could put on us. Christ experienced betrayal from one of his closest friends. He experienced denial, someone who denied even knowing him, from another of his closest friends, from his own people who he came to save. He experienced rejection, and not only rejection, but then, imagine, arrest, persecution, beating, spitting, scourging, whipping, ridiculing. And all the while, Christ could have called down his angels to come. He could have stopped the evil at any time. But he didn't. And this is the point that we need to remember when we celebrate the victory of Christ. Christ's victory came through his willingness to humble himself, to endure the evil of the world, because he knew that ultimately he would defeat it. And so he even experienced death itself, going down into Hades, experiencing the darkest evil, death. He experienced it all. But, of course, that's not the end of the story. The story is he resurrected. And with his resurrection, he gives all of us an important lesson of life. He tells us, whatever evil comes our way, and we can look around the world, there's plenty of evil. There's Christians today, tonight, who are celebrating in the Middle East, who don't know if their churches are going to be bombed. There's terrible evil. You see all the migrants who are fleeing places of war, seeking for a better life in Europe, and yet getting stranded in the Mediterranean Sea, in Greece, in Turkey, and other places in refugee camps. You see here in America the evil that's all around. There's darkness all around, undoubtedly. But Christ teaches us and reminds us through the example of Pascha, don't give in to the evil. You know, Christ was betrayed by one of his friends, denied by another friend. He could have wanted revenge on Peter for denying him. He could have wanted revenge on the Jewish leaders who crucified him. He could have wanted revenge on the Romans. But what did Christ do? When he's dying there on the cross, he says, "Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing." Imagine saying, "Father, forgive the people who are actually committing this evil against me. I forgive you." And with Peter, who denied him, after the resurrection, he gives Peter 3 chances. Peter denied him 3 times. He gives Peter a chance 3 times. He says, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter says, "Yes, Lord, I love you." "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I." "Peter, do you love me?" 3 times he gives him the chance to allow Peter to be reconciled. And whoever, the one Roman soldier who was there crucifying Jesus, ends up becoming a Christian, embracing the faith, He becomes Saint Longinos, one of the saints. So we see Christ doesn't return evil for evil, but he endures the evil and then returns love and goodness and compassion and kindness. That's one of the key messages of Pascha. He even endured death, and death is not the end. But he opened up the gates of paradise so that none of us ever have to be afraid of death, whenever it comes. If it comes at 51 years old, if it comes at 81 years old, if it comes at 21 years old. We don't have to be afraid because we know death is not the end. Christ has opened up the gates for an eternity before us. So let us remember today the spirit of Pascha, and let us try to live with that light of the resurrection within us. If there's someone in our lives who we don't speak to, we have a difficulty forgiving, if someone who has hurt us, today is the day when we say, Father, forgive them. It doesn't matter what they've done. It doesn't matter if they're repentant or not. Father, forgive them. I'm going to live with the light of the resurrection in my soul. So I'm going to show only good, even when people do evil to me. Let us live with that light of the resurrection. Christos Anesti. Christ is risen. Christi Unjam. The Lord bless you all. We will now have our Pascha offering. We remember all the